Let's go now. A little life out here. What the hell's going on out here? Hey, what about that now?
Hello everybody, welcome to the UK Packers podcast. As usual, I'm your host at SteeDDNFL on Twitter, and of course follow the group at UK Packers, and it's time for Quick Snaps. Oh, quick snaps, we ought to be the guys. I had to step away for that one. Anyway, let me get me only air monitors back in. This could be the last one. This could be it, people. But don't worry, Matt LaFleur is out there and he's been waiting anxiously for this podcast, because I'm going to come up with the blueprint how to beat the Chicago Bears. And I'm going to rest assured, Matt LaFleur, you'll be happy to know that everything you've done in the past two games was it. So do that again. I'm going to break down exactly all of the things that the Packers need to do with evidence, right? We're going to look at the Bears. Like I said, it's going to be a bit of a deep dive, but it's still quick snaps, right? Are you doing it? So it's not going to be too long. But I think the best way to approach this is let's go back and look at the last two games against the Packers and see what we did right to get the Bears on the ropes. So game one, we had Micah Parsons. It's to point that out. Game two, we did not have Micah Parsons. So let's ask ourselves then, did that make a difference? No disparaging comments to Micah Parsons here. The guy's All-Pro, Hall of Famer, blah, blah, blah. Right, is amazing. But the thing about the Bears is this is the way their games go. And this is a warning for what's coming in the playoff game. And there's other elements to it. But basically put, the Bears are run first. They run you to death. And then they use Caleb Williams when they really need to, right? Now, that has been working and not working for the Bears. And let me explain. So when they do this strategy, typically they get purchased with their run game. They've got very good running backs in Swift and Monungai. At times it looked like they were punishing the Packers, but that's what they'll do. And there's a couple of reasons why they do it. Is because Caleb Williams, and I'll say it again for all the haters, Caleb Williams is a good quarterback. I believe he will be a great quarterback, but I think not yet. And you can see that he makes the sort of hard off-platform throws, but the simple stuff to stand in the pocket and deliver, particularly under mild pressure when you contain him, I feel like it's inconsistent, right? He can make some great throws. And unfortunately for us, one of the main catalysts and players that he has that's brought on this sort of swell of scoring for them is the emergence of their tight end Loveland. And he's right underneath Trey McBride the last couple of weeks in stats, in sort of yards after catch and expected catch rate and all this type of stuff. Now, like Caleb Williams, who scrambles and they say he's got a knack for, he's got this knack for running around, I think that only goes so far. Now, it becomes a talent, and we saw Aaron Rodgers do it, and he's very evasive. But Caleb Williams, time kind of runs out when people key in on your tendencies and they know to flush you out into certain ways. But look, the Bears, pulling it all back again, they're a run-first team. What they want to do to you is zap up as much time of possession as they can, and they did that against the Packers. Taking that first game as an example, they led the time of possession. They had 33 and a half minutes. And you might go, extra 3 minutes, Steve, not a big deal, but you have to remember it sort of overcompensates. So they had 33 and a half, which meant we had 26 and a half, which means that when we get chances to score, we need to score. And you might go, that's dumbass analysis. It's kind of like, well, to win this game, you need to score more points. But what I'm saying is that you're going to have against the Bears, at the very most, I believe, the same amount of possessions. But they're going to have an awful lot longer to do it. So you need to score quick. And to score quick, and that's what they tend to do, is that they will take the run game away from other teams. And that's how they win. Because the Bears on defense are pretty poor against the run. So if we can get our run game involved early and use their weapon against them by running out the time of possession, but also crucially scoring as much as we can when we get into the red zone. And I say that because, what were we, 1 touchdown out of 5 red zone visits the last time we played them in game 2. So I'm going to break this. This is game 3 that we're coming into. So there's game 1, there's game 2 and game 3. So let's recap. So game 1, as I said, we did not have Micah Parsons, and their main weapon is the run. So let's have a look. I'm prepubescent, obviously, because my voice does this. We allowed 0 rushing touchdowns in the first game. Swift had 13 carries for 63 yards and a long of only 8, and that's very crucial, is that they will run on you regardless, and you have to try contain the running backs and Caleb Williams and limit them to smaller plays. They will get plays because they're very good. And similarly, Monungai went for 14 carries, 57 yards with a long of only 9. And as I'll reiterate, we did not allow a rushing touchdown, and that's crucial. That's exactly why we won the first game. Now, this game is going to go the same way, not unless we can sort of put it in our favour and take the run game away from them. And I think that's very important. If we go up high early, it's a poison chalice in a way. But that aside, you look at that first game and you go, brilliant. I mean, we kept them, their rushing yards down. They didn't score a rushing touchdown. Then why was it so close? Well, what happens inevitably is that they run out the clock, the game gets close, or they're trailing. And the only tool that they have then after that point is to say to Caleb Williams, we don't have time to run anymore, just go for it. And that's how he ends up scrambling around and making these plays. So that will put more pressure on our secondary, which is arguably where we're weak. So let's go to the second game briefly. We had no Micah Parsons in that game. This was played in Soldier Field, and the weather is a massive issue here. I mean, they call Chicago the Windy City, and that's exactly what happened. Matt LaFleur talked about it in his press conferences on the run-up to this matchup, and he was saying, like Jordan Love was throwing the ball, and it sort of went left or went right on him as it was getting there. Which is a disadvantage. You might go, Steve, that's a disadvantage for both teams, and it is. However, Carlos Santos was the MVP of their game. In the second game, which I don't want to remind you, but I will, that we lost. And Carlos Santos kicked from 51 yards, and he was so expert at doing it, which is always the benefit of getting used to kicking in your stadium. But again, you cannot take away from the talent. My God, to kick into the wind. He hooked the ball left or right, whatever it was, and had it swing back in and score. He was the difference maker in that game. Also didn't help that Keyshawn Nixon had 2 brain fart penalties, unsportsmanlike conduct or unnecessary roughness, I think one of each, which gave them first downs. And then also Romeo Doubs, who I will remind you was the absolute saviour in that game, because when Jordan Love went out after getting, I believe, targeted by Booker, Romeo Doubs came in and Malik Willis did a fantastic job. And Romeo Doubs got the only touchdown of that game for the Packers. The rest were field goals. And ultimately he was the one who spilled the ball on special teams. But let's have a look. I mean, their main weapon, again, remember, is the run game. So how did we do without Micah Parsons? Well, you'll be happy to know that Swift went for 13 and 63 in the first game. He went for 13 and 58 in the second game. So we did better against him with a long of only 9, right? He's at a long of 8 in the first one, just out of interest. Monungai had 9 for 50. With a long of 13. So again, we shut down the run game in both games. We did it without Micah Parsons in the second. We did not have our starting quarterback in for the second game. He was knocked out very early on. And then Josh Jacobs in the first game was on a snap count, or the second game was on a snap count. We still did really well there, right? Emmanuel Wilson came in and did an absolutely commendable job. The difference this time being that Josh Jacobs has been rested, Jordan Love has been rested. We've more of our wide receiver weapons back. I believe Dontavian Wicks is in concussion protocol. Matthew Golden was full participation today or yesterday. So he looks likely to play, when I know you'd sort of say, well, what difference is that going to make? Because they're not using them, which is true. But again, so let's have a look at that then. I mean, did we do enough in the last 2 games to win? Absolutely. We were up by, 16-3 or 16-6. At the 2-minute warning, there was an onside kick and some absolutely manky stuff that happened in that game. I said it at the time. I wouldn't have been happy to be a Bears fan looking at that and going, we're the best. It's really weird, I mean, because the Packers have fallen down the power rankings, which is nonsense anyway, because power rankings are a load of balls. They've fallen down the power rankings. They're seen as this sort of 7th seed, almost don't deserve to be there. The fact that the Lions and Vikings ended up with almost the same record. We had that tied game, which was that 40-40 game against the Cowboys, and that's why we got in. And then also the fact that the Packers, lost 4 consecutive coming in. But again, you'd understand it. Against the Vikings, they had their third stringers, if you can even call it that. We were mired with injury. We got ran all over by Derrick Henry. I mean, there's loads of stuff that come up. And crucially, and this happens almost every year, the teams that go furthest in the playoffs have a couple of different characteristics, but one of those is that they're not as injured as the other teams. I know it's not that simple, but it certainly counts. Because you can see the position that we were in. Now, again, on defense and in our defensive secondary, we're absolutely beaten up. But Trayvon Diggs came out in that game against the Vikes for what it's worth. The Vikings are a bad team. And PFF, for what that's worth, gave him the best grade of the Packers defense. Now, he was turfed out of Dallas for a reason. And I love a redemption story and a redemption arc. And every time the Packers have won the Super Bowl, Andre Rison or whatever, they've got someone in and he's made a difference. So I don't know if Trayvon Diggs is that. Long story short, the Packers did enough in game 1 and 2 to win both of those games. They came away with one win. The games went the same way. That the Bears swallowed up all of that time of possession. They were very aggressive. Ben Johnson got very creative, which he shouldn't have done. And he was given that second game away as much as he could until the Packers decided to give it away. So it was there for the win. So that brings me to the keys of victory here. The Packers need to do exactly as they've just done in the first 2 games. They need to contain and limit the run game, which in turn will help them contain and limit Caleb Williams getting outside the pocket. Because arguably that's when he's most dangerous, is when he's doing these off-platform stuff. The formula that the Bears use is going to be the same. They're going to run down the clock, and then it's going to be desperation throws at the end. So usually you want to limit a run game, and then you make them one-dimensional, and then you capitalise with interceptions. Unfortunately for this Packers defence, what that does is that almost forces the Bears to do things that plays into the Packers' weaknesses, which is not great, which is tight end play. And like I said, Loveland has been just below Trey McBride, who broke all sorts of records in the NFL this year over the last couple of weeks. So he's going to be an absolute handful. If we're going to win this game, Keyshawn Nixon, no penalties, please. No rocket balls, please. No brain fart moments. No, because remember I think it was the second game, is that he was in the end zone. Great coverage, as he's akin to do. The ball was whizzed in by Caleb Williams when it shouldn't have been. It went through Keyshawn Nixon's outstretched hands and directly to the wide receiver right behind him, who I think was Loveland. So we can't be doing that. When we come down with a chance of an interception, we need to get it. Also, we need to make sure that we don't repeat what we did in game 2 by not capitalising in the red zone, the red area, as they like to call it. Because we were 0 for 5 or 0 for 4 and then we got a touchdown. We were coming away with a couple of field goals. The wind is going to be a factor. So if we do get down the field and we do have to take the points, we do want to be as close as we can. Because Chicago are poor against the run and Jacobs is healthy. So we should be able to ground and pound and get up as close as we can. And hopefully we come away with a couple of touchdowns. I would not be surprised if we were up heavy at the halfway stage. And then that's when the Bears get particularly dangerous, because they put it in Caleb Williams' hands. They say, screw it, just throw it, and he will. And then we've got a real game on our hands, because I think that plays into our weakness. Now, I saw the question as well, someone asked, is that should we be using Malik Willis in this game? Should we be bringing him in for creativity, or swapping him in for Jordan Love on a couple of plays to keep them honest, or using him as almost a halfback and throw him in there and maybe he gets the ball, maybe he doesn't get the ball. I love the idea. I think Malik Willis is a fantastic player, but I just don't know what value that adds. Now, you're probably screaming at the radio or, iPod, Walkman, disc player, and saying to yourself, well, obviously, Steve, he's a great player, and he, pretty much did everything he could to beat the Bears the last time round, and then he got knocked out with that shoulder injury. But there's nothing that Malik, and again, this is blasphemous to some people, there's nothing Malik Willis can do that Jordan Love can't. Now, I know Malik Willis seems to be more mobile, but that's a product of pressure, I believe. I think Jordan Love, the expectation is that he stands in and delivers a throw and goes through his reads, whereas Malik Willis is more skittish is the wrong word, because I think he's absolutely outstanding. I just question why we would need to add in effectively a gadget or trick play to try beat the Bears, when we've proven in game 1 and 2 when we faced them this season is that we had enough in our armoury to beat them. And it was just, we literally threw the game away on stuff not related to the quarterback at all. So I don't think that's a problem. I think this Packers offense is, way better than what the Bears defense can give him. And I think that the offense is not going to be the issue. The issue for us is going to be on defense. And it's going to be when the game gets late and when the Bears go into desperation mode. But I would rely on Caleb Williams to throw a insanely good touchdown at the same percentage reliance of throwing an insane interception. It's just, can the Packers be in a position to come down with them? Because I think he will make mistakes. If this game goes the way it should, and nothing does, right? But if this game goes the way it should, the Packers offense should score liberally. And the Bears offense should be stymied against the run and have to force into a pass. And when they do, that's when we come down with a couple of interceptions and ice this game and win convincingly. Because the Bears are very cocky with their number 2 seed, and they seem to sort of put some sort of stock into that versus looking at the form and looking at the prior games that the Packers have played. So do we use Malik Willis in a creative way? I don't see why we would need to. You know, it's not as if they put Malik Willis out there and they're like, oh my God, we didn't expect this, you know, and all the stuff about, oh, well, the Bears might have to prepare just in case Willis comes out. Look, Willis is great and he's mobile and he's good with his legs, and I think he'll absolutely punish this Bears defense. But I don't foresee it. And like I said, I mean, typically, and again, you can pull out some creative stuff in the postseason, and there's absolutely nothing stopping a head coach from saying, you know, let's incorporate these couple of plays if we feel good about them. But, you know, Matt LaFleur is very risk averse when it comes to this type of stuff. We've seen him take his foot off the gas in games where it looks like we're going to win them, right? So I just don't see it in Matt LaFleur's character to do it. I think he's braver on 4th down, but I don't think that equates in personality terms to him putting Malik Willis out there. And if you're putting Malik Willis out in a strict 1-for-1 swap with Jordan Love, the Bears defense are going to prepare like they would against if Jordan Love was out there for that snap. So I don't really see what extra that gives them. You know, like at least if Taysom Hill was out there for the Saints when the Packers let him go, you know, it'd be a wildcat stuff where he'd just get the ball and it was a designed run. Maybe that's the case, but bear in mind he's limited participation with a shoulder injury, so I just don't see the Packers doing it. But that's my take. So should the Packers win this game? Yes. They should have won both regular season games. They should have had a better record than they did. And the Bears got beaten by the lowly Lions team. But anyway, look, this could be our last quick snaps, but I don't think so. I think we will be back, and this might be an exciting announcement to look forward to anyway, after all of these games go off, because the UK Packers, we're only going to ramp it up. UK and Irish Packers are only going to ramp it up. We don't end at the Super Bowl. We keep it going. So there's going to be more meetups next year. There's going to be some great content coming out to keep you tied over between February and August. Well, really May, and when everyone comes back for, you know, training camps and rookie mini camps and all that kind of jazz. But anyway, keep the faith. This is not the end of the quick snaps, I don't think. And if it is, we've definitely thrown the game away in a couple of those areas where I said that we shouldn't do, right? Because, come on, I have all the answers. Anyway, I'm at SteedyD NFL. We are at UK Packers. You are the best audience ever. And I'll talk to you. And be there on socials for the game. 1 a.m. in the morning. It's an early one. Go Pack, go.